I will. Good morning and welcome to the 9:30 call. We're so excited to have with us Debbie LeeKeenan. So, Debbie, I'll turn things over right to you.
Sure, great. Well, it's always wonderful to be back in Massachusetts, even if it has to be through Zoom. It's so great. I have a lot of my history is in Massachusetts, lived there 40 years, working before we moved out here to Seattle. And through all my work, I've always had a focus with this anti-bias and social justice lens. For people who I don't know, I always say, tell a quick short story that how I got into this work was that, as a Chinese American growing up from New York City, I remember not always seeing people who looked like me in school. And one story particularly stands out when we moved from New York City to New Jersey. My family moved there when I was in third grade. And I remember the first day on the playground, a child came up to me and said, "Last year we had a Mexican. What do we have this year?" And what I remember is the dead silence, that no one said anything, not the playground monitors, not the children, not the teachers, and just everyone staring. And I remember then, that's when I decided I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up. And I didn't want anyone to feel the way I felt at that moment. So these kinds of personal experiences about our social identities, I really believe impact who we are and how we interact with the world. For me, it was obviously as a professional and educator, but today when I'm here is to talk about families and how families also think about how their social identities impact who they are and how that impacts their parenting and how they want to think about creating a world. How do we create a more fair and just world with our children? And this new film, which is going to be released this fall, is really a companion film to the first film I did about reflecting on anti-bias education in action, which is about early childhood classrooms and teachers. That film we released in 2021. And both of these projects has been with my dear friend and colleague, John Nimmo and Felice F.A. McKinney of Brave Sprout Productions in Seattle. But this particular film today is really, we're honored and had this opportunity to learn from and dialogue with families about their personal and complex stories regarding what kind of world do we want to create with our children. Let me get us going there. Okay. So we all know that families are the children's first teachers, right? And from birth, children are absorbing and asking questions and making sense of the world around them. And that, of course, includes people. Who am I? How am I the same? And how am I different from the people around me? We know anti-bias education places diversity and equity at the heart of everything we do. And for families, it means thinking about those four goals of identity, diversity, justice, and action. Families, what we've learned, though, is think about the first two goals, identity and diversity, when they think about their parenting. Those are most critical as parents start this journey with young children. So one of the things we've learned is that families parent with an anti-bias lens in multiple spaces, in their homes, in their communities, and schools. And this happens both informally and intentionally. While we're eating breakfast, right? Reading a book to our children, putting them to bed at night, taking a walk in the neighborhood, going on the bus, at the playground, attending cultural events, museums, protest marches. And of course, it happens in the interactions with our children's schools and programs. We've also learned that families' anti-bias journeys are more complex, personal and emotionally charged than educators and schools who are doing anti-bias work. And parents make mistakes and are not perfect and are just making it up on the spot. However, we have learned that each family has a vision for social justice based on their own identities, their histories, and their contexts. I like to say we often carry our ghosts on our shoulders. These life experiences and our social identities impact how we interact with the world in real time and that includes parenting. So I'm actually going to be in Boston. I think you've shared that on August 27th, where I'm going to share the whole film at Bunker Hill Community College. But today I just want to share 2 short clips and give us a chance to ask questions or talk a little bit about them. So the first clip is Gabrielle and Casey. They have 2 children, ages 4 and 6. And Gabrielle talks about being mixed race.
We're a mixed race family, and
Can you
Casey's
hear?
white, I'm Asian. And we both had, we've always wanted to have children. And we both had a lot of kind of grief and coming to terms with the fact that our children are not going to look like either of us and are not going to be like either of us. They're going to be totally different. And it's almost, it was a scary prospect, like they were here, you know, before I gave birth to them. It was kind of scary and sad thinking about, like, what is this going to be like? Am I going to be able to relate to this person? How am I going to feel as a person of color if my child is white and then people think I'm like the nanny, or people don't see me as this person's mom? And I don't want to speak for you, but like, you know, you've had a certain experience, and like having children with an Asian person like that, you know, that was very different for you and maybe not what you were expecting or had envisioned for yourself. And so that was very scary. But then when they got here, it was like a lot of that anxiety just sort of, I don't know, it just sort of dissipated because it didn't really matter.
It just wasn't there.
It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's everyone's experience. I think that a lot of mixed race families who like don't match and not everyone looks alike, I think that that is really hard. But just speaking from my own experience, only a lot of that anxiety really lifted. And I now kind of think that like being a mixed race family and having each one of us kind of look different, it's like our superpower. Because for me, it allowed me from the very beginning to really understand that these human beings, I don't own them. They're completely different people for me. And like my job is to get to know them and make them feel seen and support them, but they are not me. And even if they were the exact same race as me, they still would not be me. But knowing that they were going to maybe look different and like have this different racial identity, it kind of allowed me to really like get over my ego from the get-go and just really understand that like they may have come from me, but they are not me. And you know, our family is very involved in raising.
I'm going to move us to a second clip from Cassie. And she has 3 daughters, ages 4, 11, and 13. And she's talking about keeping her children safe.
I just feel like this is a journey that constantly keeps evolving and changing for me over time. Just when I think I've got the hang of it and I've figured things out, then something happens and I feel like I'm, you know, it makes me realize that I still have more learning and growing to do. And I feel like that's okay. And I realize that I don't always have all the answers. I feel like as a parent, sometimes I worry about the life experiences that I have had, and I see how it plays out in my parenting. And I hope that my kids know that when I'm telling them these things, it's out of love and care, and it's not me trying to give them a hard time. And earlier, I kind of talked a little bit about wanting to preserve their childhood. And I think sometimes because of the experiences that I've had in life and what I know, that gets taken away from them. You know, when they're in the car and they're playing with toys, and I'm like, everybody leave your toys in the car. I don't want you to take things into the store because I don't want someone to think that we're stealing. Or keep your hands in your pockets and don't touch anything when we go through the store. Or they were so into being spies when they were like 6 and 7, and they were at their cousin's house, and they dressed in all black with hooded sweatshirts, and they wanted to go spy around the neighborhood. And I remember their uncle just flipping out and just saying, like, you cannot go spy around the neighborhood dressed in all black. But really, they're kids. These are life experiences that kids get to experience. And I feel like my kids don't always get to have those experiences. And I want to make sure that I'm keeping them safe.
Okay, so you'll just have to see the whole film to get to meet all the families and see them in their homes and in their schools and communities. But what can we learn from listening to these families? Today, I wanted to emphasize 2 points: that families have important insights and information about their children's identities and the challenges they face, and that families bring their own identities and histories into their parenting. Their values, questions, and insights support their children's sense of self and belonging. So with Gabrielle, the first clip, she was talking about the complexity of her family's identities and the multiple emotions it brings up for them, and how, though they see being mixed race as a superpower. So what does that mean for us as educators? We need to acknowledge the strengths children and families bring to school using that funds of knowledge and cultural strengths approach, and we can learn from and with families. We all know children don't come to school as empty slates, right? They have their language, their beliefs, their values, skills, and dispositions that they've learned from their families. So as educators, we believe it's really important to ask families to share how they view their child, their own cultural values and hopes and dreams. And we need to ask that in multiple ways. From Cassie, she was talking about keeping her child safe and how to balance that, these social emotional issues, with exposing their children to bias and prejudice. Again, as educators, what can we learn from that? I think we need to be sensitive to families' desires, uncertainties, and concerns in terms of anti-bias, anti-racist issues, and children's bicultural development. We want to be alert to children who may code switch, consciously or unconsciously, between home and school. Code switching refers to when children may act differently at school than they do at home. It can be switching behaviors, language they use, and this can be both intentional or unintentional. So for our conversation, our Q&A now, I'd like to think of this as a call to action, that the voices of families are essential in an anti-bias approach. So what can we learn from listening to families? What did you connect to in those 2 short clips? How can we honor the voices of families in whatever kind of organization we're in, whether it's a school, a nonprofit, business? And how can we all partner to create a more fair and just world? All right, so Amy, I'll just, I think we can stop sharing.
Sure.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me get that. And if people have questions, I'll let you take it here, or anything in the chat. Feel free to share your comments.
So I'll go through the chat first, and then why don't we have folks, you can raise your hand or just come off mute and have a conversation. I added the links, and so the Bunker Hill screening, which is so exciting. Brian Dixon shared, wow, such deep learning. If only every parent understood that their child was not them. Kim Davenport added, such powerful clips. It's a good clip that every educator should watch. Nancy Tosa said, yes, learning with. I snuck in good news from the Children's Investment Fund. Victor Bradley said, so happy this is happening in Boston. Thank you, Debbie. Kim Davenport asked, how can we advance community conversations to learn from families to inform decision systems and support? Kira added, how can we teach educators to use this approach, learn how to organically ask the questions and start the conversations? And Debbie, thank you. This conversation is so needed. So I guess, Debbie, kind of a question that comes up from some of that is, how do you build trust with families as you're filming them, and even in those short clips, you could just feel folks' vulnerability and trust in the process. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then I see
Sure.
Marie has a question.
Okay, sure. I think it's about really creating that atmosphere in your program, both the culture and climate that will allow for risk-taking, vulnerability, sharing. And how do we do that? Is by, I believe that we as the school, the program, the teachers, the director, we need to share our stories. We need to show that we're vulnerable, because when we share who we are, it makes other people feel comfortable sharing who they are. So I think that's one way to think about that and to begin that. It's just getting to know each other, connecting. As you know, the whole political climate now is so full of divisiveness. And it's interesting. We've thought about this particular film, the family film, how there's so much pushback, and that a lot of the people who are pushing back are calling it parental rights. Parental rights. We don't
Right.
want you to talk about that in school. Don't bring those things up into the classroom. Well, we hope this film will also show that there are families, lots of families, who want this to be done in schools. So it's kind of a counterbalance to that. We, as we created it, we didn't expect all the pushback, happening in the nation, but really it's another way to think about that. Okay.
Okay, Marie.
Yes, my name is Maria. I'm working for BPS. My question is, I'm in Boston. My question is, first of all, I really love this workshop, and I think it's too short. They should make it like a workshop, because there's a lot to learn from this topic, especially right now in Boston. There is a lot of immigrant, and as an educator, I see some educator that judge the kids instead of embrace their culture, that for them to accept them for who they are. They make the family responsible. They make the city responsible. But it's just like, I feel like it's a village. To raise a child is a village. So it's not about pointing finger at the environment or where the kids live in, but it's just like try to help each other and educate the kids to make them feel comfortable, because learning is a place that children should feel comfortable, because some children, when they come in, they just come, they are like little innocent. They're not responsible for their environment. They're not responsible for where they belong to. So I feel like if you guys can make that as a workshop, trust me, I will spread the word, because it's a workshop we need it not only for family but for educator too. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Marie. Debbie.
Wonderful, Marie. Thank you for sharing that. Of course, this is not a one-shot thing. We need to do this over and over. We need to do this every day, have these conversations and dialogue. I will share that both of these two films will be available for free streaming, and we hope that you will use it as provocations. We created them to make it free so that you can share it with your communities. And then it's not that you have to agree with what people are saying in the film. It's a way to start those conversations. Oh, I disagree. Why? This is not comfortable for me. Why? And try to understand different points of view. I think that's the beginning to create that opportunity for dialogue.
So back to the chat, Sarah Montoya, thank you, Debbie, for all the work that you have done in our fields. Carrie Nenezio, I'm so happy to have this opportunity to learn directly from Debbie. At Story Studies, we will share the pre-screening opportunity with our alumni, families, and educators. Story Studies is a small nonprofit in Newton, engaging both early educators and caregivers in disrupting racial bias formation and helping kids develop healthy racial identities. Okay, thank you, Carrie. And then Missy says, always asking educators to remember children removed from their family of origin through foster care adoption and to honor that family of origin. As a transracial family, this film looks amazing. We are in such a journey of learning. We'll continue to learn and educate others. Debbie, this work is so important. Is there any way we can plan a showing in Western Mass? A lot of love for that. I am looking forward to seeing the film and bringing the information back to my agency. Thank you, Debbie. And so I think you have done, I just put the link into your landing page where, books and films, and I think to make this free and available for everything should be acknowledged and thanked. And so what is your hope, for all the work that you've done in this space and this world? What is your hope right now on August 8th?
On August 8th, I'm cautiously optimistic given the political situation. And it's just the divisiveness in this country has made me sad. And yet there is hope. There is hope that when our first film came out, we were, who's going to want to see it? Yes, in the blue states. But, let's not talk about red or blue, because what I found out was that places like Florida and Texas and Oklahoma and Wyoming have reached out, particularly since the pandemic, when I think everyone was home. I couldn't believe how many people wanted PD, wanted conversations. And yes, places like Massachusetts, California, Seattle, but to see other places and how important it was, it gave me hope. So I think I want to thank all of you. Amy, I think this is a phenomenal idea, this 9:30 call that you do every day. It's like amazing for the short amount. Get your spirit, let's get going, but keep the long haul. Right? There's always, people say it's really bad now. Well, unfortunately, there's not some revolution where it's totally going to change. We had to do this work a long time ago. We're going to have to do it in the future. It's one step in front of the other, and just keep doing it. Take one step at a time. And thank you for all that you do. I think early childhood educators, because the other thing we'll say is the hope. Right? Because we have the future in our hands. So it's the children, it's the families we nurture every single day. So it's great. It's the best field in the world.
It is. Have you and the team created a discussion guide with some questions to help dialogue?
Will we have that?
Yes,
we will. The first film, so everything for the first film, which is a great starter. We call this New Film with Families a companion film. But the first film, if you're not familiar with it, check the website. It's there. It's free. There's discussion guide, everything. All of that will be with the second film also. We actually think the second film, the feedback we've gotten, shared it, is actually a little bit of even a bigger reach, because everyone is a part of a family, right? Whether you're a parent or not. So it's almost like I've already had I did some pre-work. We've been showing some clips around the country with high school teachers, and they've loved it. Well, the early childhood one with teachers is also, you can always say, well, we do this in early childhood. How do you do it in high school? Right. But I'm doing the family films because everyone is a part of a family in one way or another, positive or having not positive experiences within their family. So I think that's important too. And I'll say the family is a circle of people who love you. So create your own family too. We claim our families.
We always say that the 9:30 call is the inspiration that we didn't know that we needed. And Debbie, you have helped us prove that true this week. I will send you the chat, just a lot of appreciation for this and your advocacy work. You have been an unstoppable, committed advocate around thinking about what does anti-bias mean. And if you think about the evolution in our field, it's not just about, hanging things in your classroom and changing up the toys. It's really about how, the culture that you're creating, and lots of appreciation in the chat. And so as you think about when you having your experience with the first film, what were like the tipping points? How can people help kind of create this buzz around it?
You mean if you're using the film? Or
yeah. Like how do you kind of frame it differently? Not like we're just going to watch a film.
Right. Oh, that These are the voices of teachers. And this one, voices of children. No talking heads. It's not, I'm not on it. John Nimmo, Louise, no talking heads, no quote experts. These are people like you doing this work every day. These are families. You can't agree, you may disagree with that family. As I said, we actually have more leeway with families because I said,
Right.
not like we're saying it's right or wrong. These are
Right.
families' voices. Okay. We did not, it's genuine. So I think that's one of the unique aspects of if you use these films in your PD or sharing it anywhere, that let's just hear what people are saying. What are teachers saying in the classroom?
Yep.
What are their questions? And what is the takeaway from that? How do we make it relevant to our setting? Yeah, we're not going to do it like that. You're not supposed
Right.
to copy it. When people first saw these films, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to do what's on the film. No, it's a
Right.
provocation.
Right.
Why are they doing it like that way? That's their context. So what does it mean in my center, in my infant toddler program, in my business, in my nonprofit? How can I bring this lens? And you start where you're at and keep walking.
Well, I think we should do an outreach to the Massachusetts legislature now that we're thinking for this screening. So I will do that. Vanessa, I see your hand is up.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, Debbie. It's so nice to see you again. I thank you for all of your work. It's so exciting to hear about everything that you're currently working on. And I was just wondering, so for the first film, you had those free posters and flyers that were able to be downloaded for folks to use. Will you have something like that for this one? You will. Yay!
Yes,
Amazing.
we will.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, I know I'm going to be at Bunker Hill Community College later this month. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. We are so grateful that you joined us here this morning, and West Coast time. And I'm getting both messages, private message texts about people just feeling so inspired by this. So just really want to appreciate you and all the work that you've done, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yes, look forward to coming to Boston. Take care, everyone. Thank you again for coming this morning, and carry on. You're all doing fantastic work.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Debbie.
Amy. Bye-bye.
Bye.